Dnes se v pořadu o letadlech a létání podíváme do unikátního živého leteckého muzea v St. Paul v americké Minnesotě.
This is the commemorative Air Force Minnesota wing. We're standing in our 1941 era Stearman hangar. So in 1941, this whole hangar would have been filled with Stearmans. This field was originally a Stearman training field that we're lucky enough to now get to fly lots of other airplanes off of. Our museum was founded in the 70s. It was actually the first wing of the at the time, the Confederate Air Force, the now commemorative Air Force, to be established outside of Texas. So we're the first kind of auxiliary maintenance wing. And we have a few airplanes here that have been here basically since the wing was founded. So we have 5 flyable aircraft in the fleet right now. The airplane behind me, this is our S&J-6. It's better known as the T-6 Texan, or the pilot maker. This is a World War II training aircraft. This is an advanced trainer. So they would have used this for training pilots on the basics of air combat, dogfighting, formation flying, getting them ready to go out and actually go out to the battlefield. With this airplane in particular, once you had flown this airplane and you were ready to go, the next airplane you would have gotten into would have been a Corsair or a Hellcat. So you would have been solo in that airplane. There were no 2-seat fighter trainers in the Second World War, at least in US service. So you would have gone straight from this out to a training squadron to then go out to the front line. This airplane is a 600 horsepower multi-ton tail dragger. So you can see it's got the wheel at the back. It's a very challenging airplane in that sense, as well as just it's very capable. Anything you can do in a fighter, you can do in this airplane. So while you've got 2 people in it, it's a very capable airplane, and that capability can make it difficult to fly. You have to be a skilled pilot, and we go through a lot of training in order to fly this airplane. But speed-wise, she'll do comfortably 130 knots in cruise. So this airplane right here, this is our BT-13. This is a basic trainer. So we started off talking about the T-6. That's an advanced trainer, AT-6. This is the airplane you would have flown before. So this is primarily your instrument trainer. This is building skills where you're learning formation flying. You're learning how to fly on instruments. You're learning all the basics. Little less horsepower. This is 450 horsepower versus 600. It's slower. It's got fixed gear. Just overall, a lot more of an airplane. Amongst our pilots, they say that this airplane is the easiest airplane to fly in the fleet. Arguably one of the easiest warbirds you'll ever fly. Also, a lot of fun to fly because you can do a lot of stuff that you can't do in anything else. So, and this airplane in particular, this is a 1941 BT-13. She is restored as she would have looked a few months after delivery to the training squadron in Greenville, Mississippi. So that's the whole deal there. The rest of our trainers, this is our PT-22. This is a PT stands for primary trainer. This is one of the first airplanes you would have gotten in. A lot of times you would have come from a basic training school where you might have done a little bit of time in something like a J-3 Cub, but this is the first real military airplane you would have gotten into. Again, this is a 1941, or this is 41 or 42 for this one. Again, a trainer, 2 seats. You're learning how to fly airplanes. So you're getting radial engine time, you're getting tail wheel time, you're learning the basics of how the Air Corps wants you to fly those airplanes. The challenge with this airplane is if you look at the wing, it's actually swept back 4 degrees. So with that sweep back, what that means is that the airplane is incredibly unstable in a stall condition and had a habit of spinning out of those stalls and causing a lot of crashes. So arguably one of the more dangerous airplanes that was flown by the trainers, but in reality, if you keep the speed up, you're going to be just fine. If you've ever heard the saying, 1 a day in Tampa Bay, which is the ongoing World War II joke about how they would wreck trainers into Tampa Bay every day, this type of airplane is one of the reasons that came around. But very safe airplane, super fun, open cockpit. This is probably, when we're doing our rides program, so when people come out and fly with us, this is one of the most in-demand airplanes that we have because of the open cockpit. The reason the wings are swept is because this is based on an older airplane. It's called the Ryan ST-A, which did not have the Kinner radial on the front, was not designed for the Air Corps spec. When the Air Corps decided they were going to take on the airplane, they added a bunch of stuff to the airplane. The most obvious one that you can see, other than the sweep back, is the bracing right underneath the side of the cockpit. So that long aluminum tube there that adds extra strength to the airplane. That's a modification they made. With that modification, they had to change the positioning of the wing, which led to the sweepback. There's a strong argument that the sweepback should have, is a negative aspect. But if you talk about any of the Army Air Corps training airplanes of that time period, they would actually deliberately leave in deficiencies to train pilots better. The idea was not to have an easy airplane to fly. The idea was to have an airplane that flew. So at the end of the day, when you're in wartime production, you're going to accept whatever deficiencies you've got. So this is for, like I said, it's a primary trainer, so they would have had pilots getting into this airplane with 0 hours of flight time. And definitely a challenging airplane to fly, but that's why you fly it with an instructor. This airplane in particular would have done a lot of pavement flying. Our L5 is a lot more of a grass machine. She likes when we take her down on grass, but for the most part, all of our airplanes like the pavement. We do have a local grass field that we get to go to fairly regularly, and they like the grass a lot better, but they do just fine on the pavement. That's your entire instrument panel on the PT-22. Simple airplane. Interesting to think about how little you have in this airplane. This airplane doesn't even have an electrical system, or did not have an electrical system. Ours does, but it did not come from the factory with one. The Kinner, it's sweet. It makes a great sound too. Little 5-cylinder radial. It just putts along. It sounds like an old boat engine. It's 106. I'd have to double check. 150-ish horsepower. So, and the nice Sensen-ish wooden props on it, and fun airplane. This is our B-25. This is Miss Mitchell. So Miss Mitchell was a B-25J that served in Corsica in Italy during the Second World War. To be clear, this airplane is not the original Miss Mitchell. This airplane was a trainer that was used in the States during the Second World War, but our connection to Miss Mitchell is pretty unique. So if you look up here, Sergeant Ray Osley was the crew chief on the original Miss Mitchell during the Second World War. He was part of the restoration team on this specific aircraft. So when Ray started telling the stories about Miss Mitchell and her escapades out in Italy, the team at the time when this airplane was getting restored in the 80s decided that we were going to make this airplane into Miss Mitchell, and she's been flying on the airshow circuit as Miss Mitchell for over 30 years now. So at this point, she's been Miss Mitchell longer than the original Miss Mitchell ever was. But this airplane, special thing with the nose art. So the nose art, this is the Miss Mitchell nose art. Kovalek, who you see here, painted the original Miss Mitchell nose art, and his family came in and did the paint when they came back in. I don't remember if it was him or his son originally. Again, I'm not the best tour guide around here all the time, but the nose art is accurate to the original and was done by, I believe by him originally on the original restoration, was he came out and did it for us, as well as all the other nose arts that you see on the wall. Oh, this is a very, very complex airplane for sure. She'll put you through the paces. We always fly with 3 crew members, so we have 2 pilots up top and then a flight mechanic as well, who comes along to help manage everything that's going on with the airplane. So fairly complex airplane. You've got 2 R2600s on it, so a lot of horsepower, a lot of performance. The B-25 during the Second World War was described as being kind of the Cadillac of the fleet. Of all of the bombers, she was the one that was a real performer. So, which is a lot of fun for us because we get to go on tour and take Miss Mitchell out on the airshow circuit and put her through her paces for the public. So it's always a lot of fun to take her out and have some fun. So we're looking forward to doing more flying this year on this one for sure. And if you want to see how complicated it is, we got to go up inside. Let me go grab some lights. I know what you're going to want to see. One of the things that's super cool here is, while we are a public museum, part of our mission is to educate, honor, and inspire. And for us, at least, a big part of that is giving people the opportunity to experience that. So to experience the airplanes, whether that's part of our ride program, so you can, if you come visit us on a day where we're flying, any of the airplanes that are flying, we offer flights in. But part of that is also giving people the opportunity to climb up into the airplanes and see what's actually going on. We have two entrances. So this is the front section of the airplane. During the war, the two halves of the airplane were connected. So you could climb between the two halves over the top of the bomb bay, which this is our bomb bay here. So you can see a lot of space in the bomb bay, and there's actually an access hatch up there. So during wartime, you could have climbed over the top of the bomb bay and even gotten into the bomb bay in flight through that access hatch. Nowadays, we treat it as two halves. So at the back is where our half of our passengers fly, and then the other half fly up here. So it's kind of two different split positions. If you come up in here, let me put some light up. So biggest rule, don't grab anything that's red. If you don't grab anything that's red, then you're doing just fine. And so you can see all of the controls that we have up here. The airplane itself, as you climb through it, has been restored to how she would have looked in Italy in late 1944. The cockpit obviously has more modern instruments in it, just because we still do fly her, and that's true of all the airplanes in our fleet. But everything aft of the seats here is very much restored to original. So we're lucky enough to have a very experienced team of volunteers who work on this airplane. So they know a lot of what's going on, but it takes a team of, on average on a work day for us, 5 or 6 guys, the whole winter to do a full inspection on this airplane. So, you're talking thousands of man hours every year that goes into keeping this airplane flying. It's not cheap, but it's not that expensive. I mean, she burns a lot of fuel. That's probably our biggest outlay on this airplane. There are about 30 of these airplanes flying still, and there is a lot of support. And we have good relationships with all the vendors who help us keep her flying. So a usual fuel load on for us is we'll put on 300 or 400 gallons of gas. To get how many flights that equates out to, I couldn't tell you, but that's a pretty common. We'll go through about a barrel of oil to do both engines. So a lot of oil. This airplane was designed to do 8 to 10 hour missions, right? So our average flight, even if we're going out to somewhere like Oshkosh, that's the at worst case scenario, a 2-hour flight. So in the span of an air show trip, we'll burn oil, but we won't burn enough oil that we have to put oil on to make it back. Absolutely we'll burn it, but a lot of times we do get oil as part of going to the shows. That's part of just part of the air show circuit. But if we don't, we have plenty of oil to make it there and back. And these are both relatively fresh engines that are very well maintained, so we're not going through insane amounts of oil. So your center pedestal, you've got all your engine controls, and then back here on the ground, you've got landing gear and flaps controls and hydraulic systems, and then instrumentation up on the front panel. So you can see all of that stuff flying. Yeah. If you saw on the way up, there's a tunnel right here. Okay. That tunnel leads you up into the bombardier's compartment in the nose. For kids especially, it's the best spot on the airplane. So, and it's one of the cool places that you can actually experience in flight if you fly with us, is if you're riding in the front here. You'll get to sit in one of these seats here, so sit right behind the pilots, and then crawl up in flight up into the bombardier's bay. Okay. Which, for me at least, when we're going cross-country with the airplane, that's my favorite place to be. It's frankly amazing. The view is amazing. And actually, while you're facing this way, I'll point out one more special thing with this airplane. So this section is all restored. This is our turret, and both of the turrets on this airplane actually do work. So obviously we don't have real guns, but the turrets do spin in flight. According to the pilots, you can actually get a lot of yaw off of the turrets, so you can feel from the seats when somebody's moving the turrets around. So, which is something that's pretty unique. There are pretty few flyable airplanes that have both the top turret and the rear turret operable. And this rear section of the airplane is the part of the airplane where you'll really see the restoration work that's been done. So I'll put a light up here, and same thing, just don't grab anything that's red. So this is the rear section of our B-25. So this is where the radio operator, the navigator, and the gunners would have sat depending on how large of a crew you were operating with. So in theory, the airplane could have operated with a crew as small as 4. Real operation, most often you were operating with a crew of between 5 and 7. So you think about that, you've got a lot of about the only person who would have been over the age of 20 would have been the captain, the lead pilot. Everyone else would have been 18, 19, 20. So up at the front there is the radio operator's station. And then our gunner positions here, so side gunners. You wouldn't have had dedicated side gunners. This would have been operated by the radio operator and different members of the crew. So, and plenty of seats back here, so this is where our other passenger location is on the airplane. Let's see if we can get some light back here. And this is kind of a less talking you through it, more detail thing. It's a little tight up there. But that's our rear tail turret. Again, the tail turret operates, and we're actually one of the very few B-25s that has the correct ammo chutes installed. So all of those 50 cals and ammo chutes that you see on the side is as it would have been in 1944. Well, and this is a relatively large airplane. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to crawl through a B-17 or an A-26 or anything like that, but the 25 is a relatively comfortable airplane. So this is a medium bomber, and at least in Italy, they were best known for their low-level work, but you were still designed to be able to go up high. So you think about, you're flying up in what nowadays we would call the flight levels. You know, you're in your big heavy coats, you've got oxygen on, all this other stuff, just to go up there and get shot at the end of the day. Like, it's not, you know, that they aren't comfortable. They're working machines. They were designed to fight, and they were not necessarily designed with the I guess respect for human life that we think of nowadays. You know, it's wartime, we got a war to fight. The greater picture is more important to the designers and to the Army Air Corps as a whole. Bomb bay is also fully functional. So the turret's in the bomb bay. So in theory, it's not currently hooked up, but if we did the hookups, we could drop bombs out of this airplane. Concrete ones, but...
It's scary.
Yeah, yeah, it's part of the history though. We haven't done it yet. So it's an H-tail. They used the H-tail just to reduce the height when they were building it. You'll notice that with a lot of the nose wheel airplanes, and this is a good view of the tail turret back here. So you can see the old gun sight, and then the twin 50 cals in the tail here, which I have to say, if I was a German fighter pilot, would not want to be facing those down, but they're a lot less scary than what the Russians were putting on their bombers. So the Russians like to put 20 millimeter cannons in the tails of theirs. So, but yeah, that's your view.
How long runway it needs to take off?
3,500 feet or so. We have a 4,000 foot runway here, and it's about as short as we like to take her regularly. So, you know, oftentimes we have a dock, which is the B-29 coming to visit, and usually when we have bigger airplanes coming to town, they go up north. I mentioned earlier that Ray Ostley was the original crew chief on the actual Miss Mitchell. Part of that is he collected the original clock from Miss Mitchell. So this clock right here is not in the airplane because it is a special piece of history. That is the clock from the original Miss Mitchell that was part of Ray Ostley's collection that he brought back from Italy. So that's one of our many connections to the real Miss Mitchell rather than ours. So this is our L5.
This is the last one.
This is our last flyable aircraft, yeah. So the Stinson L5 is a World War II liaison aircraft. So what that means is that it observation, spotter, search and rescue, artillery work, transporting VIPs, you name it, this airplane did it. The only thing it doesn't have on it is offensive weaponry, and they even tried that. So there were a few of them that ended up with bazookas out on the wings for going after going after tanks and stuff. So fulfilled all kinds of different roles. Really a very cool airplane. Got 185 horsepower on the nose, and that'll get you a whopping 100 miles an hour. So she is not a fast airplane, but she doesn't need to be. The visibility out of it is amazing, and just a super fun airplane to fly. She's a challenging airplane on the ground. So you think about the liaison mission. This airplane was designed for off-field operations. So the gear is very rugged, but it also has a lot of travel. So in flight, the gear will actually hang down another 8 inches. So that makes the landing a little bit challenging on this airplane. But once you're up in the air, she's an absolute sweetheart. She flies just the way that you want an airplane to fly. So ours is a 1942 L5, and we don't know a ton about the specific history of this airplane. Most of the other airplanes, we at least know where they were based. Our S&J was based in Pensacola. The PT, I'm not sure about. I'd have to double check. But this airplane, we have had a hard time tracking down the history on. It is the twin of the one that's hanging in the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force in Dayton, Ohio. So they were restored at the same time, right next to each other, and they think that theirs was over Normandy on D-Day. So there's a pretty good chance that the parts from both airplanes got mixed up, and we have parts of our airplane that would have flown over Normandy on D-Day. The biggest thing of this airplane that sets it apart is the visibility. You look at how big the windows are and everything. You know, if you're thinking about the spotting, search and rescue missions, ours is in Southeast Asia paint, which she would have been most used as a search and rescue airplane in that context. But the visibility is amazing, really useful. Absolutely a short field performer as well. So she'll take off and land, if you really want to push it, in about 800 feet. This is one of the early true stole birds. Lots of flap. Oh, they're locked. But it's got about 45 degrees of flap. So yeah, really a fun airplane. So you have slats on the front of the wing. And what that means is that the ailerons are effective through stall speed. Okay. So you'll stall the inside portion of the wing where the flap is, but because of these slats, you'll still have full aileron control all the way through the stall. But for the other liaison aircraft, not many of them had them, because most of them were converted civilian aircraft. That's something that's unique about this one. This is one of only 2 aircraft during the Second World War that the U.S. used in the liaison role that were explicitly designed for the military from the ground up. Most of the other ones were conversions from existing airframe designs. You know, you think about the L4 Grasshopper, that's just a J3 with a different window on it. This airplane is unique for this mission. It's based on, you can see the Stinson DNA, but otherwise it is unique. The nose art always gets a laugh. So yeah, lots of fun to fly. So we have 200 total members. Works out to about, at any given time, 20 to 30 active pilots across the fleet, and probably 40 active mechanics who maintain the fleet. The biggest thing for us, anytime I come back from doing a history flight, is that the biggest thing is that it's an honor for us to be able to fly these airplanes and to tell the stories of people that, you know, we're not worthy to stand next to. Because of the work that they did is, you know, something that, especially for those of us who, you know, grew up in today's world, like, we don't know anything about the sacrifices these guys made. Like, if you want to talk about airplanes that were dangerous airplanes to fly, this is one of them. You know, it wasn't accidents that got people. This is a frontline combat airplane with no defensive weapons that flies 100 miles an hour. On the Western Front during the Second World War, if I was a commander and I got assigned a pilot with one of these airplanes, I would expect him to last about 3 months before he would get shot down or killed or captured or whatever happened. And I would, next day, call up the whatever squadron is nearby and be like, hey, I need another L5 pilot, and next guy shows up and goes straight to work. Like, it's yeah, there were a lot of people who flew these airplanes and, you know, paid the ultimate price for what they were doing. So
Do you plan any other plane to have in your museum?
we have a steerman coming soon. So, as I mentioned earlier, this is Stearman Field, so we're really excited to be getting a steerman.